Hello. So I've talked about this a little bit. We are doing a new top prospects list. I did one of these probably about a year ago now, and some distance deep into the 2024 season. Pretty good time to do another one. Things have certainly changed a lot. There's been a rotation. There's been a bunch of sets. We've had some events under our belt. So we're going to run this back. For those who aren't familiar with what this is, the idea comes from baseball. In baseball, teams have a whole system of minor league teams with some 150 some odd players that are all not on the major league team, but are in this system where they're going through different levels and getting a chance to prove themselves and trying to make it all the way up to the major leagues. Usually out of that list of 100 some odd players, there's only like 10 to 20 that they have any real expectations for. And those are the quote-unquote prospects, right? The top prospects, and baseball writers will do, lists and reports. Okay, this is this team's top prospects, this is this team's top prospects, and they compare which team has the best, and so on. So that idea has some parallels in UVS, where we have this big roster of, are we up to 200 characters now, probably in Standard, or something like that? And, you have your quote-unquote, major league team, that being characters that have proven themselves, that we've seen in Top Cuts, possibly seen in Top Cuts multiple times, and so we know that they're good. But there's still a whole list of characters beneath that, and some of those have some potential, right? And it's just up to, maybe it takes 10 iterations on their deck, maybe just nobody's really looked at them, maybe they've been forgotten for a while, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to try to rank, subjectively, obviously, the characters that I think are the best ones that we have not seen in a standard top cut this year post-rotation. Right? That is going to be my bar. I'm going to say if we've seen a character make a top cut in some sort of standard event after rotation, then they are not a prospect. They have quote-unquote graduated. We've seen them in the majors. We know what they can do. We know that they're pretty good. This can include even if they've only made it once. So characters, including this past weekend, we had a bunch of first-time top cutters. Anything from Death Arms to Not, Vash, Ryukyu, and of course, mainstays like Ghidorah. All of those are not eligible for this list. This is going to be the top characters that have not made a top cut thus far. So if a character you think is left off of here and you want to complain about it, make sure they haven't made a top cut first, because that's probably why they're not on here. Or if you think I'm just underrating somebody, go ahead, go off in the comments, have fun. That's what this sort of thing's about, right? We make lists and we react to them and all of that. So going into this, obviously we need some kind of estimation of what the quote-unquote meta is going to be like. We don't know. We don't really have enough big events to have that kind of a take, but the best guesstimation based on the one event we have had and just, the stuff that people are talking about in, Discord channels and things like that. Smiling Titan is kind of the boogeyman, kind of the public enemy number one. Not necessarily the best deck, but the one that demands the most attention, right? That's the deck you are most likely to be playing cards in your deck or making your deck decision explicitly because it needs to deal with Smiling Titan, because there's a relatively limited number of ways to deal with it. If you can deal with it, you can deal with it, but certainly the elephant in the room right now. Aside from that, we're seeing lots of variations of Risky Encounter decks. That kind of obvious Risky Encounter is a bananas card. There will be characters on this list that are like, hey, they play Risky Encounter pretty good, for sure. Coupled with that, sort of parallel with that, there's City Rampage decks, many of which happen to have the death symbol and run Risky Encounter. Those have been making a bit of a splash lately. And then, of course, all the old standbys, your King Ghidorahs, your Amajikis are still around. We're seeing Ryukyu come back into vogue with vertical maneuvering equipment. All of those decks are still around. Toga just won the event. That's all still there. They all still matter. We haven't really hashed out what the best stuff out of this big pile of things are. That's going to be for the regional season, I guess. But that's kind of what we're looking at meta-wise. So there will be some allusions to that as we go. And with that established, let's just get into it. We're going to go in reverse order, 20 to 1. I did put these in an order. It's obviously you could kind of slide things around. It's not that precise. There's no way to be precise with this. This is by definition characters we don't have a lot of data on, right? So first things first, I put in Velia for number 20. Velia is an interesting case. I played against one in Vegas and it was relatively impressive. Right? She looked better than I thought she would look. It's a little easy to underrate all the pile of little things she's doing. But sort of a problem that she's had is that she has this Storm of Arrows card, right? That her big payoff is she plays this thing that wants you to have a ranged weapon in your card pool so you can free echo it. And then you look at the list of ranged weapon cards available, and there just hasn't been much, circa her time of release. There weren't a lot of good leads, right? Good ranged weapon cards that you want to be your first attack. Well, now there are, right? Now she has, off of Earth namely, but in general, off of any of her symbols, she can play Line Up the Shot. I believe that's the name of the card, the 4/6 throw, if it's the only attack in your card pool. That is a ranged weapon she can play. She can combo into Storm of Arrows. The other one, off of Earth, she gets Instant Shining Flash, another perfectly acceptable poke leading. You don't really know where we're going with this. You can flip the foundation, get -1 difficulty on your Storm. So that's pretty interesting. A bit of a level up for her, and I don't know how many people are playing her or trying to pursue this angle or seeing if that gets anywhere. But she has some interesting new stuff going on that I think warrants some sort of a look. So I've put her at number 20 here. Number 19, we have Shishiwakamaru. I am kind of surprised we haven't seen more noise for this guy. I assume that's basically because the selection of attacks that he gets to play with that 8 difficulty restriction isn't that exciting. But nonetheless, it would be remiss not to put him on a top prospects list right now because obviously we just had a set with a bunch of huge high difficulty attacks. He gets to play one from free, ... There might be something there. That's kind of what a lot of these tailing end of the rankings characters are going to be like. There's some tool that they have, some neat angle that's interesting. Don't know where that leads in terms of a deck build, but kind of notable. Put them on here. Maybe somebody works on them. Maybe they pan out, right? Also notable for Shishiwakamaru, the free momentum with vertical maneuvering equipment gets some bonus value. Really, any character, see Ryukyu, that generates a lot of momentum very easily has gotten a boost from the Infinity asset that puts momentum to good use, even if Shishiwakamaru himself only just gets to spend 1 on the free move. You might not pack a lot of other momentum costs into your deck because you're spending it on your character. But if you want to do something with your excess momentum, vertical maneuvering equipment is there, and especially useful for a character as a 7-hander that wants the defense too. At number 18, Christa Lens. So, back last season when I wasn't working on that silly Rikia deck, I was playing a lot of Not the Brave, who just made a top cut. And one of the things I found with Not is even though that character doesn't seem to do a whole lot stat-wise, just the ability to have card selection in and of itself is sneaky good. And it shouldn't be sneaky good because, tutoring, it's a card game, this should be great. But, it's easy to underestimate in this world of characters just putting crazy stats on things left and right. That character barely puts any stats on things, it doesn't really matter what else they do. It kind of matters. Tutoring for choice cards can be very good. Christa also does that. She's 632 instead of a 7-hander. It's a bit of a different shape, but she still has the sun going on, still has the Walk the Dog symbols. The go-to play with Not was basically to summon forth a chain of Walk the Dogs, was kind of the main win condition. Christa gets to do the same thing, gets to also do wall counter stuff. Pretty interesting little package. Hard to say if it has, it's just going to have to be tested in a real competitive environment, right, to tell if it actually has legs or not. But I wouldn't want to underestimate what she can do. Coming in at number 17, we have Heiku Toga 1. Himiko Toga 1. So this is the first in what will probably be several, hey, risky encounter, look at this characters. The sort of classic Toga 1 decks are trying to play a big string into a bunch of alleyway ambushes with a big full card pool. And, that kind of waned off. In particular, the damage boosts rotating and just other level ups in the format. Kind of, the format passed her by. But, Risky Encounter, to some extent, possibly Mists of Despair if you want to play that, are very interesting additions to that package that hasn't really seen much benefit in quite some time. So, after a good long while, Toga 1 has some new things to play with. Whether that's enough, can she, is it still just not enough damage to deal with some of these bulkier 6-handers that are around now? Hard to say, but it's very interesting and certainly worth paying attention to. Next up, we have Sasha. This is the true I don't know ... character. Sasha is just a case of, I look at this character, 723, Granted, at a cost, can put +3 damage on an attack string, which is very good for a 7-hander. And has this funky, tutor a 1-diff effect on it, which, probably has a pretty good range of targets. I haven't examined this very closely at all, but it's hard to look at this package and completely discount it. It feels like there has to be something here. I don't know what it is, but she just looks really potentially compelling if somebody can put the right pieces together. So we've slotted in Sasha here at number 16. At 15, Chronostasis, my guy. This is definitely pet deck status. So I played a fair bit of Chronostasis earlier in the year, and he has fallen off a little bit. He's not quite as good as he was when the meta was largely a lot of younger Toguro and a lot of Amajiki. Chronostasis' enhance, lock a card in their card pool effect is very good against those characters. Still has its uses now. You still get to sort of deny some momentum with it. Very good against shift attacks, right? You just lock that shift attack in the pool, and now they don't get that anymore. So there's some use cases, but even so, even when that enhance isn't very good, the form is still very good. The ability to double play an 80% power, or a Spirit Gun Final, or his own Chronostasis trigger, or as some people are doing Big Fist Bash now, it is very compelling. It's a lot more effective than you might think, just kind of reading like, oh, okay, he just gets to replay a move. Replaying a move is good. And it's a limited subset of moves, but that selection is not bad right now. There's some pretty good ones to play. Enough to fully carry a deck. Hard to say. You got to work around it a little bit. He does play resting up off the all-symbol pretty well. There's some other sort of funny cards that are expressly good in Chronostasis, even if they're kind of iffy elsewhere. But he's a very interesting character. If you haven't played with or against him, and you like to play lots of different decks, give him a try sometime. He will probably surprise you a little bit. Number 14, Toya. So Toya is in a bit of an improved position right now. He's a beneficiary, I would say, of the Smiling Titan decks, in the sense that, that enhance, the plus or X minus X speed equal to the number of their committed foundations is quite good against a character that's trying to play 9 diffs. So as a 7-hander and, perhaps off a Void with the barrier shields, he's pretty well positioned to block Smiling Titan's nonsense, which is one of the scarier things about being a 7-hander right now is like, Smiling Titan just starts only has to hit you twice with her crazy 10+ speed moves. But Toya actually has a shot to try to block her out, and on top of that, offensively has gained pressing the advantage. So off of the Void or Water, and I don't believe he's ever been legal at the same time as 1.3 million volts. I believe he rotated that card. Well, now he has it. Off of any symbol that you're playing him off of because of the attuned. It's the 2-check version, but he puts speed on it. It already has a bunch of damage with what he's trying to do. Very intriguing package, I think, to land Toya on this list as a character to be giving a look. Next up, we have Vaxildon. This is a bit of a recent, as of this week, I've been looking into this guy. So I was looking, we have all these like City Rampage risky encounter decks I was talking about earlier, right? Those are all Chaos decks, right? They are Chaos decks on characters that have the death symbol. They can play City Rampage into your classic Chaos stuff, your Chimera Krakens, your Walk the Dogs, etc., into some risky encounters with +2 to the check. Obviously very compelling, right? But I was wondering, why haven't there been Earth City Rampage decks with death characters that can do this, or Water with death characters that can do this? And the reason is basically the character pool, for the most part, of Earth plus Death and Water plus Death characters isn't very exciting for that kind of a plan. Vaxildon is the one exception. If you want to build a Water City Rampage deck, Vaxildon may be your guy. The Water 5 diffs include things like Ice Sword Execution and Chimera Kraken, which are very good recipients of his +3 speed on his first move. The, commit, burn them for cards in your card pool gets enhanced a little bit by risky encounter. Water 7-hander, you get Referee Jury for defense. All very interesting, pretty intriguing package. The list of Water 5 diffs maybe doesn't run quite as deep as Chaos's does. You kind of have to reach for the last couple that you're playing. But it's an intriguing prospect, and one that I think has a chance to have some legs if someone were to work on it a bit and try to figure something out. Up to 12, Karasu. This one is pretty obvious. He's definitely gotten some attention in general lately. Haven't quite seen him I don't know if he was registered for this recent event, or if he was, he just didn't quite make top cuts, but character that scales off of foundations, blowing up left and right. Meta-defining card that wants you to blow up 3 foundations. Wonderful match. Granted, he's kind of playing risky earlier in the string instead of later, which is a little unusual, but you know, there's some obvious appeal there. He can make that enhance do lots and lots of damage now very easily. And you have to figure everything else out, right? You have to figure out the defense, you have to figure out your landing moves, but can't leave him off of a top prospects list when he just got this big of a bump, right? Alright, going to number 11, Mikasa Ackerman, even despite the errata. I am not so high on some of the other errata Attack on Titan characters, but Mikasa I wanted to put on this list. If you think back to the Asui, right, when Tsuyo Asui 1 was legal, there was, you know, that flash that got some cards banned where it was a really, really aggressive Asui deck that was going around. But besides that, Asui had a lot of success playing defense first. There's a lot of these grindy water defense first decks that just said, you know, I'm Asui, so I will be able to kill you regardless of how long this game goes, so I'm going to play defense until I have my good ones. And yeah, Mikasa's kind of had that turn 2 crazy aggro stuff nerfed out of her, right? There's still the possibility that with the right build and the right package and the right, you know, collection of maybe damage pumps on foundations or just the right attack lineup off of probably air, maybe fire because you get dimension sword, but probably air, that she could find that list that has good enough defense to play that old Asui style of game where, you know, we're going to chill, we're going to fend you off, we're going to get a handful of the good ones. She has some card draw built into face, which is nice. And whatever stage of the game that we find the good ones in, we will be able to execute a kill. So very intriguing in that regard. I'm imagining he's kind of a fan favorite. I'm sure there's some people working on her. Unsure if they're kind of working that angle, if they're just going to try to be more aggressive with her. But still a pretty interesting character, I think. So we'll put her in here at number 11. Let me make sure I have my count right here. Yes. All right, so number 10, Toga 4. This is slightly cheating because I put, you know, the majors are characters that have made the tops in a standard event. And there was an event not too long back where it was, I believe it was David Toombs, Let's Talk UVS was running an event that was Godzilla and Girl Power characters only. So not a standard event. There were 2 Togas in that top. But not a standard event, so it doesn't count, right? She played well in the World Baseball Classic, so to say. Doesn't count, not the major leagues, it's fine. But that deck was pretty interesting, and I was surprised to see it kind of disappear after that, because what those Togas were doing, if my recollection serves, is they were basically playing 2 characters to copy. One was woman and one was Mineta 2. And if you get that yard full, right, you get the stuff in your discard pile to be able to do this for a few turns, you get to be a 6-hand size character whose offense is +1/+3 or +1/+5 on everything, and whose defense is either clog their pool, or you choose the other ability you have momentum and just make a bunch of stuff 0 speed and draw cards. 0 speed and draw cards, particularly pertinent in a Smiling Titan world. So, still a very interesting package. I don't know, I'm assuming people who were playing her, you know, tried her out in some standard events and didn't really like it, but I'm still kind of curious about this character and what she can do. So we filed her in here at number 10. Number 9, Izuku Midoriya 4. We were talking about Barrier Shield a little bit earlier. That is one of the relatively small lists of cards that helps you against Smiling Titan. And Deku 4 is very good at having Barrier Shield off of Void. You play him off of Void, put 4 Barrier Shields in the deck, whatever. You're gonna see 8 cards over a span of turns, possibly 10 if you play a Rejuve. And you know, you still have some kind of a potent offense compared to what a lot of the like dirtily, you know, Void ± speed characters tend to get. So it's interesting in that regard. You still, despite having some offensive ability, you still do need to figure out how you're going to kill people if they're playing very defensively. That is a problem for him, or it was before when I was playing this deck for a little while. Probably still is now. But nonetheless, in a meta where we really want Barrier Shield, any character like this that is sort of known for being good at playing Barrier Shield becomes interesting. And you know, he was always, I don't think he ever made a top cut back before rotation, but he was on the bubble a few times. Kind of forgotten. I think people at this point kind of undersell what he can do. But I still think he's pretty good. I still think with some work, with some polish, with some trying to find the right cards, and maybe it isn't even void, right? Maybe his other symbols have some interesting fury attacks or something like that now. But I'm going to put a little bit of respect on this guy. He's still a tough customer. In at number 9. Number 8, Nejire Hado. This is one of those characters that is just going to be on every single one of these lists that I make until she randomly top cuts. This is a kind of a tired old thing by now. 7-hander, -2 speed on everything, +2 damage on everything, or everything that you care to have those things on, is just good stats. And, you know, gaining some health back to recover from taking some hits is relatively interesting as well. But overall, just generic fundamental 7-hander. You find the right combinations of cards to, you know, play through a game with her, and you play well, and you do all the fundies, right? There's not a lot of tricks going on here. Nothing that's going to completely overwhelm people, just very good stuff. As much as Smiling Titan is the, you know, meta menace, a lot of the other aggressive decks right now are playing long strings where -2 speed on the whole thing is pretty pertinent. We're going to talk about that again here in a little bit. And Nejire is still good for that. So never going to not be in a top prospects list until she actually makes a top cut. This time we have her at number 8. Number 7, Mount Lady 2. I'm a little surprised. So this is one of those characters that was pretty popular when it was, you know, Jetburn was the shiny new set. People complaining about it getting blown up on turn 2 by Hot Mount Lady 2 draws. People complaining about the unblockable, right? But she generated some negative attention and saw some representation at big events. I don't remember if she might have been one of the qualifiers at the HLC. Might have shown up a bit there, but that was before rotation, so here we are. She's still good, right? She's still a 6-hand size that slams stats and the pseudo stun, like better than stun 1 on everything. Once she gets a little bit warmed up, she still has that late game unblockable threat. Gets around some of the Smiling Titan hate in that regard. If you make a giant attack unblockable, you will get around barrier shield and things like that. You will not get around cape. You won't get around facing danger, perhaps, is going to be start to see more play now. But still very intriguing. You know, her only downside really is that you are sort of forced to play Canyon Cannon. Being forced to play Titan Clip's not that big of a deal. Being forced to play Canyon Cannon is a little more annoying. And you do need to find them, right? There's some consistency concerns there, but still, you know, any 6-hand size with this quality of free stats and this bonus late game impact ability is hard to ignore. All right, going up to number 6, Irwin Smith. We were talking about chain blocking, and you know, here we are again, another 7-hander, a little more health this time instead of gaining health like Nejire does. Still gets to put -2 speed on everything if he wants to. Sacrifice a foundation is a real cost. He does mitigate that with some of his building, and there's a lot of stuff in AOT and just in general where you get paid off for blowing up foundations. He gets to play all of those. Very interesting little engine guy, has all sorts of different things you can, you know, you have to pick which of there's so many cards that he can sort of trigger off of these sacrifices and these little things that he gets to do that you have to pick which ones you're actually running. You can't just run all of them realistically. So there's a lot of deck building to be done here, and you have to figure out the offense. +2 speed on everything is good. Is that lethal on its own against a good defensive deck? Not really, but you know, order, death, these symbols have some good cards. You can kind of figure it out. It definitely needs to be figured out, but Irwin's pretty compelling. You don't want to disrespect any, you know, 7-hand size, put -speed on everything character we've seen Rodan have success. Sometimes he's a little bit more than -2 speed, but a lot of time Rodan is just, you know, a different version of Irwin Smith with a lot of the same ups and downs, right? You get some synergy stuff, and you get plus speed and minus speed offense figured out. Irwin has the same shape, has a little bit more in terms of synergy stuff that he gets to do. Downside is he caps, right, at +2, -2 speed. He doesn't get like the big block mods to do plus/minus off of, but really same story. Someone figures this deck out, it has every chance to be every bit as good as Rodan, if not better, if they can really solve him. So he's going to come in here at number 6. Number 5, Dobby. Dobby 2? Dobby 2. Alright, I used Roman numerals for all of these except for Toga, and it's going to make me fix it. So, Dobby 2's kind of always been around, right? It's always scary. A 7-hand size, 3 damage and everything. You might just die. You could always just die to Dobby 3 kind of no matter what he's playing. seen a bunch of different packages. I've seen bullet punches recently. We've seen throw packages on this guy. And now, what's kind of extra intriguing about Dobby post AOT is there's that Intense Heat Blast card that gets stun equal to half the number of attacks you remove from game pile. And really, the only realistic way to get that stun up to a big number with any kind of like early to mid game timing is to Sugar Rush power up. Right? If you use Sugar Rush power up, you can selectively take all 8 or however many attacks you remove from game pile, and this is an all-in turn for sure. But you play an attack, you Sugar Rush, you get to 8 attacks you remove. Maybe Dobby's top of deck has hit a couple more. Play Intense Heat Blast, it's stun 5. And now we're cooking. And Dobby has the damage. The first move had +2/+7 on it. The Heat Blast is going to be a 5 mid-8. Anything after that, provided you're landing these moves after you stun the bejesus out of your opponent, you can almost certainly kill them. And so this is a very interesting line. Dobby, in particular, gets to tutor for the Sugar Rush in this picture. He doesn't get to tutor for the Heat Blast. But, you know, the other attacks he's playing can always just kill you because he's playing +3 damage and everything. Always going to be very interesting. Another one kind of like Nedgerate, he's going to be on every top prospects list, unless he's made a top cut recently. But in this case, we have him at number 5 with some of this interesting Heat Blast synergy that he gets to do. Number 4, Levi Ackerman. We said this with Chronostasis. Replaying an attack is good. You find the right attacks. Replaying attacks can be very, very good. I am excited about replaying Deception Dagger with this guy because you get to go take... If they have 2 copies of Risky Encounter in their discard pile, they don't anymore. They're just gone. You've stunned them for... Maybe you haven't even bothered to play a second move and just play Deception Dagger, pick it up, screw the block step. Or you just want to play 2 Deception Daggers this turn. And bring that in and move on with your day. So, just like Chrono, you find the right attacks. There are almost certainly weapon attacks that are good to play multiple times beyond just like having whatever stats that they have. Deception's one of them. There should be others. I haven't looked, to be honest, recently, but hard to say no to free stats and everything. Pick up a move, play it again later. Just raw good. There almost certainly has to be a good Levi deck out there. Might take a lot of work. There's certainly tons of options to sift through and pick what you want to do. But we're certainly going to have him on here for now until we see anything otherwise up here at number 4. Number 3 with Edge Shot. Another in the line of, hey, this character is good at playing Barrier Shield, always has been. Once again, like Mount Lady being sort of forced to play Titan Cliff, if you're on Void anyway, is not really a problem. He has some interesting stuff he can do off the good symbol as well. I don't know if that build's gotten any more defense at this point. That was kind of its problem originally. Off of Void, he certainly has defense. Is it enough defense to defend 19 health? Unknown, but he has that scaling kill condition. He's kind of always going to be around. I was surprised that he hasn't made a top cut since rotation, but certainly a quality character. He's made top cuts before rotation. Just kind of fell out of favor, for this or that meta reason. Other characters that people who were playing Edge Shot decided to play instead, that sort of thing. I think some of those people have said that he's maybe like a piece short right now, but that's a vibe, right? Maybe he's not. Maybe there's something creative that you can do with him. Maybe I don't think there's a Fire Edge Shot because you don't have any other review stuff, but you never know. 7 hand size, Barrier Shield character, good scaling offense. Really can't be bad. I've got him here at number 3. We get sort of increasingly obvious as we move towards the hop here. Number 2 is Wolfwood. It's pretty funny. Wolfwood has had some moments in the meta in sort of the water cooler talk where it seemed like he was going to be the next boogeyman. First, really around the time he was released, right? It's, he was showing up all these like challenger only events they were having. People were playing Wolfwood and just blasting people with Twisting Azure Infernos. Post Younger Toguro, people are like, oh, people are just going to do the same things in Wolfwood. You can't just hit Toguro, you have to hit Mob Strike. They did hit Mob Strike, to be fair. But he's kind of been in the conversation and has yet to actually show up and show up at their top cuts. And now the conversation is, okay, we have all this Death Stealth Mill stuff now, right? Some of those cards I was talking about that work for Irwin work for this Death Stealth Mill strategy. You've got Combined Firepower. You get paid off with Risky Encounter. Wolfwood still plays Twisting Azure Inferno while these are all ranged in weapons. He buffs all of them. If he sneaks some momentum now, he's an 8-hander. pretty compelling face for, you know, any sort of death, self-mill kind of a thing you might be doing. There's more than just him. There's plenty of options to do this with. But Wolfwood is certainly the most, I don't know, free stats guy that you can do it with. And yeah, I don't think anybody doubts that Wolfwood can be very good. At the very least, right, worst case scenario, he's the aggro deck that can just kill you when he draws hot, and maybe he doesn't quite have the consistency or whatever to get there all the way there. But nonetheless, demands respect for sure. Number one, very, very obviously, is Ymir. This is not particularly a secret. Everyone knows Ymir is good. There's a lot of faith in her. Immortal Shapeshifter, I believe, is the name of the foundation that I hear is spiking in value. I didn't look before this video. I do still need a couple of those myself. I only ever opened 2. So that's become a problem because I don't know if I can get them anymore. But one of the cool things about Ymir is that her face, just even if she hasn't transformed yet, she's still a real character, which is not really true of the other transformed characters. They have a cute ability or whatever, but they're not really real, right? You're probably not winning a game with Bertolt without ever transforming him, for instance. I mean, maybe you are. Somebody's going to at some point, but like your character's not carrying a lot of the weight there. Whereas with Ymir, you could reasonably see somebody just winning by slamming 2 damage on all our moves as a 7-hander and getting a free drop every turn. That's not where you want to be. You still want to transform because their transformation's even better. It's even more damage, right? You have to do some loops to trigger it, but it scales up to 3, 4, 5, plus 6 damage and everything. If you're doing all the stuff, you get a little defensive ability, which she doesn't really have on face, and you get +2 speed on all your stuff. So very capable once transformed, still pretty capable when she's not. Solid, good stuff, 7-hander. Not a whole lot of negatives about her. Other than, obviously, before you've transformed, you have to find some early game defense. She doesn't really do anything to help you on that front. You're defending herself turn 2, turn 3. So you need to find some of that. I don't think there's any popular fire relics right now, but fire would give you barrier shield, of course. So that's kind of interesting for people that want to pursue that, but mainly just, a 7-hander that's really explosive when she transforms, and she just has to get there. Pretty popular, probably going to be one of the more represented decks in events coming forward. I think the whole community would be quite shocked if there's not a single Ymir in all the regional top cuts. So whenever I do one of these the next time, she won't be on it. But for now, since she missed top cuts in this one event that we have had, she gets to sit on here and sit at number 1. And that is going to be a wrap for my top 20 prospects heading into the Season 3 regionals. Let me know what you think. Shout out in the comments. Think there's a character I ignored, character I'm bad talking. If you tried one of these and be like, nah, they're garbage. That's the point of these lists, right? Generate conversation, have people make fun of me, have somebody make top cuts with a character that's not on this list and then rag on me about it later, right? That sort of thing. I did, certainly maybe some reaches at the bottom of this list. I had this list drawn up, and then like 4 or 5 of the characters that were on it made top cuts at this last event. I had to take Death Arms off, I had to take Knot off. So we did some shuffling, but still a pretty cool list. It's not that thin. There's a lot of characters on here that certainly have potential to be quite good if somebody were to put them on the map. And yeah, we will see how it plays out over this next 6 weeks or so, I believe is the time frame. We're going to see a lot of local qualifiers into the 3 regionals, and a challenger deck coming out in between there is going to shake things up a little bit possibly too. But yeah, that'll wrap it for this video. I'm not quite sure what my next one's going to be. I kind of know what my next one's going to be about it, but I don't really want to spoil that right now, especially if I end up not doing that and doing something instead. But yeah, it's kind of going to be like this. If you missed my last one, I'm kind of going to chill it on the news videos. At this point, I think they're a little redundant. UVS Games is doing a much better job getting the news out now than they were when I started those up. There's other content creators that are kind of covering the news a little more regularly than I had been. So, we're going to skip out on those and just kind of put out topical videos like this one, a couple times a month, that kind of cadence. So yeah, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe. There will be more of it. It won't be the most regular thing in the world, but hopefully stuff that people like. And yeah, I'll see you around. Have a good night.